Welcome to our art podcast. I'm Matt Dean. I'm the producer of the podcast and sometimes host, and I'm joined today by Luca Shaw. Luca Shaw is not Luca Shaw anymore, it's Luca Sutton now.
Yeah,
still Luca S. Yeah,
still LS. Yeah.
Long-term listeners of the podcast might know Luca as Luca Shaw,
yes,
because that was your name before you got married.
Aye.
To George.
Yeah.
And now you're Luca, still Luca S. But you're no longer working at 1853 Studios, but you are here for what's happening today. So welcome back.
Thank you.
It's nice to have your laugh echo around the space once again.
Very cute. That was like you wanted me to do a little laugh there, and
making you laugh is not hard. To be fair, is it?
That's true. Yeah,
you will tend to just laugh, but that's good. No, it's nice to have you. It's nice to have you around. It was nice to see you at Fedi's event a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, yeah, that was so good.
We're here to talk about something. Well, you're going to explain why we're here, because I don't really know. I'm just here to press record and facilitate a conversation and make a podcast about what is happening in 1853 Studios, Mill 2 Gallery from tonight.
Yeah.
So you're the one who's instigated it and planned it and all the stuff. Inform me and the listeners what it's all about, please. Well,
so before I will just speak briefly, because I left in December, but I sort of did leave, but I sort of didn't leave, and might be a bit confusing. But because basically we've had this Arts Council project, which if you go back a few episodes, you can hear about what we had planned and all that jazz. So we were kind of still towards like 3/4 of the way through the Arts Council project at that time. So it was like dead important for me to still be involved somehow. So yes, I've sort of left, but I've stuck around just to be on the peripheries of the Arts Council project.
See what you did.
I knew I would say something like that, of the Arts Council project. So tonight, this is the last one. So it's like the last show of the Arts Council project, and I guess the last thing I'm involved with. So tonight is Peripheries. It's a group show, and it's one that was conceived really from a place of anger.
Ooh. Tell me more.
Well, to be honest, because open calls, I don't know how people, feel about them, but I know how I feel about them. And I hate them. They're really hard, like for artists generally, because I'm an artist, so I know, I apply for open calls, I find it really tough. Part of what makes it tough is people don't identify the parameters, what they want. So quite regularly, open calls aren't themed.
Yeah.
So they're just like send in your best work sort of thing, and you're kind of like stabbing in the dark a little bit there.
There's no cohesiveness to it, and it doesn't make sense necessarily. Yeah. It might make sense once the curators have put it all together, but you're going into it blind, and you don't
really know what they're going to want.
No, exactly.
So then, so often you're not what they want, because of course you can't be, because you're not a mind reader.
Exactly.
So I can, there's benefits, pros and cons on both sides, but for me, the cons, they outweigh the pros. So there's that, and then there's also, they're often unpaid. An incredible amount of unpaid labour goes into open calls. You're writing, you're selling yourself constantly. These are what artists do all the time, and it goes overlooked. So that's another thing I hate about it. And then quite often it's sort of like it's not what you know, it's who you know a little bit, and that's a shame. So bits and bobs like that. We really wanted to create an open call situation that was completely free of any of that, or as much as we possibly could. So we paid each individual artist as well to present. So there were like a few things, and we were very like clear about what we were wanting. So what we were trying to do is kind of make a message like, yes, open calls can exist.
This is how you do it.
But they can exist in a different way.
Yeah.
They don't have to exist in that same way that we've always done them. Yeah. And that can be really, really like disheartening to a lot of artists. And that was the other thing. We gave every single person feedback, individual feedback. And I know that like, in some organisations that can be hard, but just to bear in mind, that was Kathy and I who did that. And I don't like the excuse that it can't be done. And I would like there to be a change in that sense. If anybody was to ask me what I would want to change about the arts ecosystem, generally it would be that. Because how can anybody develop? Your feedback could be the difference between someone deciding they're not going to make art anymore. And I cannot stress that enough, because I am in that place. It does not take a lot when you're reading through applications to just make a couple of notes on a spreadsheet and then move on. And then when it comes to sending the email, just add that in. And I get it. It takes a lot more time. But if you know you've got an open call coming back, you need to set aside 2 weeks of time to make sure that you can send all those emails out. And I know there are people that do it really well. Like it takes more time. It takes more planning. And I know there are situations where it might not be possible. But please try. Like, even if it's literally just like you made it to our top 20 or you made it to our top 50, how amazing would that make somebody feel?
And then just being organised enough to say, well, that doesn't work in this open call, but that goes on file and that can be there, because I actually like that. And it might work at another time or something like that.
Absolutely. Sort of saying, oh, maybe there's another place for this. We'll follow up, or we'll keep hold of that. Or we did that on one of them because somebody was like, they're really interested in the gallery and like doing some exhibitions, kind of just like forwarding it to Deggy and just being like, this person might be interested in getting involved in the future. You know what I mean? Because when you're developing a relationship with artists in this ecosystem, in the arts scene, you have a responsibility. I really do feel you have a responsibility. So we launched Peripheries. The theme came from, we were chatting about, this is Kathy and I, we were chatting about Oldham as a town. We were thinking about the fact that Oldham sits on the periphery of Manchester and is part of Greater Manchester, but kind of is seen still a little bit as like perhaps a little bit behind in that cultural scene. But then we were also kind of pulling that on its head a little bit and saying, well, what does that give? You know, periphery, being on that periphery of a town, of a main city, doesn't need to be a bad thing. There can actually be some really fantastic things that come of that. You're not in the heart of it. So you're not in that, oh, I can't see the wood for the trees situation. You can see the wood for the trees. You've got a lot of space and time to think and play and make mistakes. And I think that's something a lot that we see in these periphery towns. Like, I'm from a periphery town that kind of would be considered not so much a periphery anymore, but it started off like that and people were like making mistakes. You know, it's often a place where there are lots of people who aren't able to kind of like break out and show work in these towns. Like, being able to show work in these towns, it is much harder. You know, the opportunities end up being a lot more centralised. So it was about creating a less centralised, more local offering. And that doesn't mean it's just people from Oldham at all. What the open call is to interpret the idea of peripheries. So for us, Peripheries was about Oldham, and it was also about this mill as well, because this mill exists now as a periphery building almost. You know, it's not what it was intended to be anymore. It's kind of in between things. You know, it's lots of multiple things. And I think periphery can mean in between spaces as well, or half one thing, half another.
100%. And actually, what I was thinking when you were talking about Oldham's periphery to Manchester, Greater Manchester, it's actually on the periphery of Lancashire as well. Yeah. It's even though Manchester's in Lancashire, there's like people like you travel over the hill, you go into Burnley or somewhere, it's very much in Lancashire, and there's a Lancashire thing. And I was just thinking, it is kind of more of a sort of a, not limbo, but you kind of neither one thing nor another. And so you are on the periphery of more than one thing. Yeah, so that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, so that's where it came from. So then we built in this idea of the open call there and said, right, well, we've got this theme. So let's really clearly talk about what we're after. This is our interpretation of periphery. What's yours? So it was kind of like a call out to lots of artists, and it was like there was a section on there that had like, if you have connection to Oldham, please let us know, just so that we were really aware of those that were coming actually from Oldham, because it's something that, you know, I care about and we care about here. But generally it was about what's your interpretation to periphery. So it was like submitting works that had a clear connection in some way, but that could be really broad. So obviously that was our interpretation, but as you'll see tonight, the interpretations are really broad, really span a really wide array, like both with medium and with approach to the theme and with representation and stuff like that. It's really interesting. The interpretations are epic. So we based our decision on the unique interpretation to the theme, and how well we felt they would fit together as a whole, and also the space. And we made that clear. It's also about the space. The space is massive in Mill 2, so we've managed to fit in some really big works that some artists won't really get to display very often because they're massive. So it's like quite spectacular to see it in that environment. So these were the things we were considering. But honestly, we received like I'm trying to remember now, like up to nearly 100 submissions.
Right, wow.
So it's quite a big job to get
Is
through.
that 100 different artists, do you mean?
Yeah, these were individual submissions.
And you whittled that down to?
8.
Wow.
We originally were choosing 6, but we put an extra 2 in and found extra money from different pots to be able to, because there was just, and honestly, I can say every single one of those 100 had merit and was fantastic. So it's really hard to decide, but we just did everything we could, and limited with time, myself having left and things like that. So it was just really important that we really gave as much time as we could to looking at everything and really thinking really carefully about what we were picking.
Shall we go and shall we listen to the artists and introduce, bring them onto the podcast and have a listen to them?
This is a great point for that.
It's a good point for that. All right. Yeah. Well, thanks, Luca. Nice to see you again. Let's go meet the artists.
Let's go.
Yeah.
In a bit. So in theory, this is already recording. So hopefully you can hear me. So I'm here now with Rabia Begum, who is one of our exhibitors. How are you? How are you feeling?
I'm good. I'm okay. I'm excited. This is my first ever group exhibition that I've taken part in. So thank you so much to yourselves at 1853 for hosting me here and having me here.
You are so welcome. When we got your application, we were thrilled. We were absolutely thrilled. The work is amazing. So just quickly, and before I ask the questions, because we realise that this is an audio thing and people can't necessarily see what we've got on here, could you just quickly describe the pieces that you've got in the show tonight?
Yeah, so I have 2 bodies of work in this space. So one body of work is dangling on a circular hoop with 6 different monoprints on perspex that are hanging on the circular hoop with some wire and a bulldog clip attached to it. So these monoprints have 6 different countries, map outlines that are involved with human rights struggles or genocides. So there's several different colours on these. One is in pink, one's in purple, one's in yellow, one's in blue, one's in a bit of all the colours. So the different countries I've chosen are the Rakhine State in Myanmar with the Rohingya Muslims, Sudan, Congo, Xinjiang, China with the Uyghur Muslims, Palestine and Rwanda. So these are the prints that I have in the space, and they're quite colourful. They're transparent so you can see through them, and the light looks great in this space coming through that, and it's quite a light touch with bringing in my early years family workshop, so it's quite colourful as in this space, and they can almost look like birds, which is what I've heard from other people. And I think it's really conceptual. If you don't know what they are, you can probably struggle to understand what it is because it's not literal and they're not an exact map outline of each of the countries, and that's intentional because of the loss of lives, the maps fading over time and not actually staying as their exact map outlines due to colonization, land degradation, climate change. So that's that body of work. The other body of work is focused on a Ramadan series. So this one is an illustration that's in the corner of the room on a wall, backed up by red pinky paper, and on brown paper it's highlighting my living room, one of my previous living rooms, showing me listening to Quran recitation of a TV channel live of Mecca, which is one of the holiest city in the world for Muslims. I'm trying to capture and remember what Ramadan is like as a British Bangladeshi Muslim growing up here in Oldham, and I guess in the UK you could say. So it's an illustration piece, and I've used a red and green pen as a nod to my Bangladeshi heritage, as the Bangladeshi flag is red and green. So this is basically a nod to that, and it's quite playful. It's playing around with different lines, mark making, line making. So it's a standalone piece, and beneath it there's a red carpet on the floor with some cushions, red cushions as well, dotted around. So it's almost resembling a living room space as well. And sorry, just to say that the pieces, the faded maps on perspex, are almost positioned facing each other, so it's almost like a conversation that they're having with each other. And this is something that I also wanted to do with my Ramadan series. So the Ramadan series actually has 9 pieces to them, but there's only 1 piece in the space.
I'm just going to ask you, what does Peripheries mean to you in this context, I guess?
With the political climate,
yeah,
and with the current local elections today, it's been quite a strong one for me with Peripheries. So in terms of being born and bred here in Oldham, being a creative, navigating what it's like growing up in a strict Muslim household, but also living here, navigating Oldham and navigating the UK and growing up, and some of the struggles as a person of colour and also as a visible Muslim woman who wears a hijab. There's been many challenges, but I think so growing up here, that was quite challenging for me as a young person. But as I've navigated different spaces, gone on to develop myself and my practice and my personal and professional practice, I've been really able to embrace that and be proud of where I am from now and be proud of Oldham and seeing the amazing things that are happening, like Peripheries on today and 1853. So there's been a level of, I guess, challenges in terms of like identity growing up here and my diaspora being spread everywhere, but then now there's an appreciation to being linked to Oldham.
Can you tell us something about your practice that people might not know?
Oh, that's a great question. I deliver and have delivered many family workshops. So I think my faded maps on Perspex body of work, they're quite colourful and playful, which juxtaposes the topic being quite challenging and serious. So I've actually brought in my early years and family's background and workshops into the light play touch of this. Yeah. And these are works in progress, so this isn't hopefully the end. I want to really keep myself accountable to the work that I'm doing. And one thing to mention just on that with my practice is anything that I manage to sell or profit from these pieces on the countries on human rights struggles and genocide, none of that money will I keep for myself. I will donate that if there's a print or something that I make to that specific country. So if I do in the future make loads of these things, or if anyone wants to donate and support, then hopefully, that'll continue and have a long-lasting legacy.
And then the last question we were going to ask is, can you tell us what the creative ecosystem needs most? We created this open call as a response to what we deem as a toxic open call culture. So that was kind of our response to being like, what does the creative ecosystem need a little bit more of? What would yours be?
We need empathy, we need humanity, we need to listen and really listen. Who do we want to see in our creative spaces? Who do we want to support? And this opportunity here with Peripheries has really it's really shaping and breaking those boundaries for creatives who may not necessarily have the confidence or the abilities or the skills or the opportunities really, just from their different identities to be able to show their work. Having like empathy, understanding for different global lived stories can really disrupt the system that's been built.
Thank you so much for saying that and saying it with such conviction. I think I am excited to have that published on the show. I'm just going to finish there because our performance is going to begin now from GemmaLees. Because we're not going to be able to hear too much of it, there is a table of plates currently stood up facing outside of the gallery with lots of poetry on it, and they're going to be smashed up in front of our eyes. So, see you in a bit. So, I have just witnessed the performance by GemmaLees. Would you be able to just quickly explain what is the piece that's in there and what you've just done?
Cheese in Pieces is a continuation of a performance that I normally do in sort of cabaret situations, where a performance poem is presented on plates, and as I perform each stanza or each section of each stanza, I smash them with a hammer in an act of catharsis and anger and erasure probably as well. I wrote a poem specifically for this called Peripheries. it's about the dual periphery of being homeless and the amount of people who you meet when you're actively homeless. I was 20. I was in a young person's hostel. I wasn't doing anything, and the first thing people ask people who you maybe went to school with, or people's mums and dads who you went to school with, and they go, "What are you up to? What are you doing?" What do you say when there's no answer to that? Like, are you supposed to say, "Oh, actually nothing because I'm homeless"? Because we're largely defined by our jobs, and by what activity sort of mainly occupies us. And if that activity is being homeless, I guess we feel like we don't want to tell people that because we don't want to make them feel uncomfortable. And it's a big thing to divulge as well, because people generally assume that homelessness is a character fault of some kind. It's something that you've done. Maybe you have a substance misuse issue. Maybe you're a violent person. Maybe you've been to prison. None of those things make you a bad person, by the way. But the assumption is that homelessness is a character flaw and not just a situation that so many people find themselves in. I think most people are about 3 months away from homelessness, something like 3 months of losing their job away from homelessness, something like that. Absolutely. It might even be less. I think the majority of people have less than £1,000 in savings. And it is a situation that anyone can find themselves in. And the whole time you're in a hostel, or I never was in a rough sleeping situation, but I'm assuming it's similar. Everything is very impermanent. Anyone that you meet, you might not know them in another month. And in the end, it took me about 7 months to get somewhere to stay. And the entire focus is getting this flat. Then actually, when I first moved in, I missed the hostel because I didn't have anyone to talk to anymore. And it was so quiet. And I didn't have any furniture. I didn't have any carpet. And I remember going backwards and forwards to the shower and getting my trainers wet because I didn't have any other shoes, and the floor it didn't have any carpet on it, and I didn't want to get nails in my feet. Gosh. But it actually didn't matter very much anyway because I didn't really leave the flat. So it was okay that my trainers were wet. It's really desperate situation.
And you wrote in because the next question was going to be about what does peripheries mean to you, and I suppose this is all linked really, like the way that you've interpreted peripheries in this situation is those like moments and the misconceptions around what, like that there's like a very binary thing, like from homeless to not homeless. And I thought that was very interesting in your application when you were talking about how, well, it's not like a black and white switch. There is a periphery zone where you remain for quite a long time.
There's a second one that you hit and you're like, oh, okay, I didn't know this was here. Not that I was ungrateful. I had nowhere to live, but it's not an end destination.
No.
The old tenant moves out. They check that they've not left any furniture in there, and then they just get the, I don't want to slander Bury Council. That might be different nowadays. But it was given to me, just as a sort of empty shell.
Tell us something about your practice that people might not know.
Well, looking at me, you probably wouldn't know I'm a Romani gypsy, and that's really important to my practice in two ways. The first is it's important in the sense of introducing people to a culture and a history that they don't hear about very much. I went to Leeds University this week and did a lunchtime workshop in making paper flowers, which is a traditional occupation for gypsy women. I got to talk to them about the culture and the history while they made these paper flowers, and it was beautiful. It was such a nice vibe. But I also, a lot of my journalism in the Traveller's Times particularly is quite angry about. I've written about Joseph Mengele. I've written about visiting Auschwitz, like really intense topics. I've written about people commodifying the word gypsy, using it in clothing companies. So it's this it's on this one hand of using us as like this kind of romantic idea of freedom and conflating it with things like fringed garments, which don't belong to our culture, dream catchers, and this kind of thing of like freedom and hippiness and this being a vibe. And then on the other hand, there's the repeated attacks on us in the media and the systemic racism that still exists today in a lot of countries in the world, including our own.
Yeah.
So a lot of my work is to do with that dichotomy of using us at the same time as hating us.
And to lead on from that, we'd like to ask you what the creative ecosystem needs most. And I feel like you're going to say something bold here.
So it needs more opportunities that are outside London.
Yeah.
It needs more opportunities that don't come with a paywall.
Yeah.
And further on from that, opportunities that actually do pay.
Yeah.
Because it's very important that people can pay their rent, can buy food. It's in the art world, you've got the sort of top 1% who are making big mega bucks. And then you've got a massive amount of early and mid-career artists who aren't actually making very much at all.
Yeah.
People should be paid for work. And if we're going to regard something as important, then people do need to be paid to do it. And I think the importance of art was really shown in lockdown, particularly. People got by through creativity. You know, endless people downloading Netflix, taking up different creative hobbies, reading loads of books. It really showed that creativity is vital to humanity. It gets us through those times, and it helps us to not just to express ourselves, but to like find ourselves as human beings. And that deserves to be rewarded. And especially if you're making work that isn't for sale, no one's going to buy a pile of broken plates. That's really, really important. And I think just more diversity as well. And it is going in the right direction. I know some of the incredible disabled artists. I'm really honoured to be part of Disability Arts with so many other amazing people who wouldn't have got a look in the past. And an appreciation that art comes in so many different forms. Yeah. The main question I get asked when I tell people I'm an artist, they go, oh, do you paint pictures? Yeah. Don't get me wrong, the drawing and painting on display today has been incredible, but it's not all of art.
No.
And there's so many other things that can make you feel a certain way or give you comfort or allow you to express anger or make you feel a certain way that's outside of that. So I think there needs to be a more understanding of the broadness of creativity.
Well, your performance in that was just like that moment, really, like the strength of word and the strength behind the hammer. Like, it was really fantastic and very, very moving. Thank you very much for coming and chatting with us and taking time out of the opening, because I know it's a big night for people, and also I know you've got an even bigger night ahead of you. So you're travelling to London, aren't you?
Yeah. What I mentioned about things outside of London, I'm part of an exhibition called Criminal at the Museum of Homelessness. Opens on the 22nd. This is just to turn into a plug now. Opens on the 22nd for 10 weeks, and it's free. And it looks at criminalisation of homelessness and different laws around that. And I'm exploring laws from the Egyptians Act, which was in the 1500s, which is where we get the word gypsy from, all the way up to 2022's police crime sentencing in courts and all the different laws that have been enacted to suppress gypsy and traveller culture and lifestyle.
Tommy, we're really, really happy to have you here. What does Peripheries mean to you?
For this piece, for anything, if you start a drawing, stick it on the wall. Don't think about what you've drawn. Think of what's around it. And see what's in the space, in the peripheries. That's what it means with the work. Like reflecting back, but what it means, I don't know. People that are outside. I don't know.
It's the edges, maybe those that might not get seen.
But then it's also thoughts that you don't explore, like fucking.
They get lost.
You're still got in the boat. If you sit in silence and you dwell, those thoughts that come that you don't think about in your day to day, and you're able to fucking let them bloom. That's I don't know. Yeah.
That's mint. Yeah. That's very poetic. All right, tell us something about your practice that people might not know.
None of it's mine.
Elaborate.
I've got a fella called Neil Pearson who's in a tenant block at Thomas Court in Hume. It's all his work, but he can't leave his house, so I'm his showman.
Wow, we definitely didn't know that. So we'll leave that as part of a performance element of this work.
When he hears this, like, he'll know it's for him.
Yeah, for who? What's his name?
Neil Pearson.
Out to Neil Pearson.
In 1982. Playing sax for fucking what's the name? Don't know. But he's a true artist.
Multi-talented. Saxophone.
He's a warlock. He's he's like, love is the law and shit, yeah.
Thanks, Neil, because you've made this exhibition fucking mint.
Oh, Neil, baby.
One last thing. Can you tell us what the creative ecosystem needs most?
Nothing. I don't know, fucking... I don't know, just people doing what they do. Money's obviously a thing, but that doesn't start anything off. It's I don't know, just do what you like to do.
How do people do what they like to do? It's quite hard, isn't it? So it's time, ultimately, isn't it?
You need time, and it's ticking.
You're absolutely right. It is ticking. We've just actually was very willingly coming along to talk to us. So we've got Kamil Duda with us. Kamil, how are you feeling tonight?
Very good. I walked into the exhibition space and there's just so much great artwork.
Yeah.
Feels nice to be involved. I studied with Rio and I know Daisy quite well.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
There is quite a good representation from Manchester School of Art. Well, I'll jump straight into some questions.
Yeah.
Just quite broadly, what does Peripheries mean to you? And especially, I guess, in this context.
Yeah. So my work sort of looked at peripheries in relation to the city. And the peripheries of the city are like the electrons to an atom. They're very much where the energy is. And I think...
Oh, yeah.
I think it's very important to sort of put our resources to these areas because I think that's where a lot of the sort of trailblazing occurs in the arts.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're quite underrepresented. And when I look back at like growing up in Salford, there was very much a lack of like art education and opportunities to just, get into that world as a young person.
Yeah.
And that obviously completely changed when I started studying in Manchester. But they're very close to each other and I think that bridge can be built.
Tell us something about your practice that people might not know.
I kind of lay it out all on the table. But there's a lot of irony, I guess, involved and a lot of contradictions. And it could be very much quite funny watching these random sort of acts. And irony definitely underpins almost everything that I do. I'm very deadpan about what I do and very serious. And I think the topics that I'm sort of trying to critique are very much serious and just sort of, I want to state that it is all very serious and all the issues are, but you can use irony to sort of lift it out of darkness and bring a different sort of light to it.
I think that's a great thing to explain, and I think that your work has a fantastic entry point, and that's where I mean, like, that moment that people interact with it is kind of humorous, but it's actually a very, very serious conceptually.
And I think a lot of great artists sort of succeed in that. It might not revolutionize or like create absolute like transformational recognition, but that just sort of entry point is just enough to sort of bring an awareness to it.
Could you describe what the piece is like in the show?
Yeah, so the work that's in the show consists of about 7 plastic boxes containing sulphur dock water that I collected on a very cold and windy day. So it was a very arduous sort of act, but I was trying to bring labour back to the docks and work them again. In the 1960s, sort of container technology became very standardised, and the ships that were used to transport them were just too large, and it made the canal obsolete because it's very inland. It meant Liverpool sort of got all that business and all that trade. And obviously that just led to an absolute obliteration of any dock labour and all the culture that went with it. And it definitely left a lot of social impasses in the area. So it was almost like a retroactive act to contain this water, quite literally containing by putting it into a box. And I was thinking, why didn't I do it into small boxes? Because it's been such a tricky work to transport.
I know when you arrived, and it was like these only 3 containers, so they were very heavy as individuals, like tons, isn't it? How much is it? How many gallons is like of the water? Like,
so I think I brought like 100 litres.
Yeah, it's
just
heavy.
stock water.
Yeah.
But when I first took it, it was a very quiet day because it was so cold. So I had like no looks. And then when I went again for this exhibition to collect it, it was really sunny and people were looking at me really strange.
So I didn't realise that you took it. I thought maybe the water was like first taken and then you tried to hold on to that same water.
I did try. It is the exact same water in a way. But I had an interview in London for a master's. So I took the water there and it got poured out into like the kitchen sink, which was really bad because it's quite dirty. Because I couldn't just transport it back up from London. But it was quite nice to sort of take that water from Salford down to the capital.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Even
that as an act was quite.
And then the fact that you've done the effort for this show to go and get it again, that's so interesting. Yeah. I love that. And then there's a piece in the show as well, which is the film of you doing that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the film just acts as a documentary of the random act. It's almost like a reoccurring rupture of that event and almost bringing those 2 timelines of today and the docks when they were functioning.
Yeah.
So the film almost works in its own way.
Okay, and then lastly, we'd like to ask you, can you tell us what the creative ecosystem needs most?
Yeah, I haven't been in it for long enough to definitely sort of give a decisive answer, but I think definitely less self-serving relationships.
Great.
Sometimes it feels like you get an opportunity and there's like an extraction transaction going on. So it's like I can either take something from you, take something from me, and then it almost ends.
Yeah.
So it's like almost what's past that. Yeah, and more art-facing sort of institutions. I think art schools are in kind of a bit of a tricky place, where even over the time that I studied at Manchester School of Art, things have become less art-focused. And it's kind of hidden behind, like, we're trying to support artists, but they're very much sort of taken into their own direction. And one of my works for the degree show kind of protests that. Yeah, so I think letting the Art Council run things, I think having institutions in their hands and under their support is always good. So yeah, I'd say more of that, but I don't know enough.
I'm here with Rio Darwin, who's another one of our Peripheries exhibiting artists. How's the night been so far?
It's been so lovely. It's nice because I remember exhibiting in the other Mill Gallery, like, God, I don't know how long ago, 3 years ago maybe, and I feel like that was when the Studios and Gallery was kind of emerging, it was kind of getting its name out there. So to see the second gallery open and see so many people here has been so lovely. I feel like there's a real community forming. My pieces in the exhibition are the ceramic sculptures, so I've got kind of a smaller squat one that's quite wide, and it's got this kind of glossy, pale, neutral glaze that looks quite alluring, but then the texture is quite sharp and spiky, so you kind of allured in, but then you kind of warn not to touch it. And my other piece is on the plinth, which is more of a slender, tall, growing piece that looks like it's still forming, it's still growing, and they're very kind of organic, fluid forms inspired by the landscape. So it was nice to see kind of Peripheries as the theme, because my work is based on where I grew up, which is Bridlington in the East Yorkshire coast. So it's a little seaside town, and it's part of the Holderness Coast, which is the fastest eroding coastline in Europe. So the cliffs are retreating at like an average of 2 meters every year. So Peripheries to me means physically being on that edge of the land, but also kind of it's quite a socially deprived area. And there's a lot of places along the coastline where there's no coastal defences and no protection, and people's houses are literally falling off into the sea, and you can see it happening kind of live in action. So Peripheries is, looking at the landscape that kind of feels a little bit neglected, feels like the edge of society, physically and socially, and exploring how an ever-changing landscape can kind of translate into an art practice, and seeing the beauty within it as well. It's not always a negative thing. It's quite intriguing to be in a unique landscape and bring that back into somewhere like Manchester. I would say that the art ecosystem in Manchester needs more kind of arranged community events. I think especially when people are working full time, everybody's really busy and struggling to juggle an art practice on the side, that having designated places for people to go and maybe explore their practice in like a less serious sense would be really nice. I know that I find it quite tricky to kind of switch out of work mode and go into art mode and have the pressure of making something for people to see or to submit to an open call. That it would be really nice to have more kind of community spaces where we explore our art in a really fun, laid-back way, whether it's just doing, like a little task in a medium that's not directly related to your own work, like a map making workshop or exploring a new medium that you've not done before, and just kind of bringing back that playful side of art, I think is really important. And it's something I'm trying to navigate myself at the minute, that it would be really nice to do that with other people as well, I think. I always think about doing my art foundation, and that was just such a time of like experimentation. We'd try out so many different mediums, and it'd be like, we're doing this for a week, we're doing that for a week, and there was no pressure of making a really good piece of work at the end. It was just purely for the sake of making, and I think I really miss that, and I kind of really would like to reconnect with it.
This is DaisyFulton. Just briefly describe the work you've got in the show.
Yes, okay, so it's a rather large painting.
Yeah.
It's actually made up of 2 canvases put together, but it is one piece rather than like a diptych. And it's used with oil paint, and the brush marks are very free and explosive almost.
Yeah,
I feel
that's
like
a good word.
There's a different range of brush strokes that I've used. The colours are mostly like blues and yellows.
Yeah.
Gosh, I'm trying to remember what it's all looking like. Browns and reds.
The whole show has ended up, have you noticed, because when we were selecting, your piece ended up being like this central piece.
Really?
Because you don't realise sometimes, but, well, I'm sure that everyone does, but when it comes down to you shortlist the ones that are just, really interesting and had an interesting approach to the theme.
Yeah.
But then you also have to think, when you get into that shortlisting phase, like shortlist phase, what's going to look good together, what's going to work together, what's going to communicate with one another in the space.
Yeah.
And yours ended up becoming like this kind of like central point that things were having to, because it's such a fabulous like kind of statement in the room, and what's happened is a lot of those colours have kind of seeped out, like the water of Kamil's boxes and bits and bobs like that. So that was quite nice.
That's nice to hear. Thank you. I made the piece at the very, very end of being at Manchester School of Art, and it was made at a time where there was a lot of like physical movement. We were moving studios, we were leaving uni, I was about to move house, I think, so my environment was changing a lot, and I think it was kind of like on the edge of the next thing, which is what ties into Peripheries.
Yeah, I don't even need to ask the first question. You carry on.
It was like, this kind of next step into something that I didn't know, but I was kind of on the edge of something new, but also at the edge of something old that I knew for so long, like the structure of uni.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of movement in the way I painted it because I was physically moving around a lot. The way I paint as an abstract painter is often things that hint to something familiar but don't quite reveal exactly what it is. And then that means the audience can kind of interpret it in their own way. And that's how...
I liked the interpretation because it was different, because Peripheries in a lot of other ways in the pieces in the show were more conceptual, but actually it was about, I loved the approach of like going from one part of your life to the next, but also the visual look of the piece and how it's kind of like the way that you paint works in that way as well. So I thought it was a really nice kind of to add another perspective in. We wanted to make sure that we had plenty of different perspectives that people could relate to.
No, for sure.
All right, so tell us something about your practice that people might not know.
Well, I was speaking to Elvie about this, my good friend Elvie, who I also share a studio with, and I feel like it's gotten to that point we spend so much time together when we're painting that we know each other better than we know ourselves. And she was like, she was like listing all these things. And I think the main thing for me is both my parents are not artists. My mum is definitely creative, but in more of a, like when she's like doing the house, she loves to pick nice pictures and she does a lot of origami. So not in a painting way. And my dad, absolutely not. He's a cyclist, like doesn't do anything creative in that sense. But they always name my paintings. Like the reason I title my work is because of my parents. And burn the candle comes from a saying that my mum always says to me, like, burn the candle, do the thing, say yes to that, try the opportunity. Don't wait around to wear the pretty dress, like just burn the candle. So that's what that piece was named after, like my mom and the inspiration that she gives me. But yeah, my dad also, he'll come up with, I think because my dad doesn't try and look too deep into it, he just takes it for what it is. So then he might say, oh, well, this really represents that. And then he'll come out with a line and I'm like, well, there's the title of the piece. So
I love that.
I guess, yeah, the title of my work comes from my parents a lot of the time.
What do you think the creative ecosystem needs most at the moment?
Oh, good question. I think, is nurturing a good word?
Absolutely.
I don't know, like protect
like longer
us.
term.
Yeah, like we were saying earlier, it is so draining and tiring always having to apply for open calls and getting rejected and not hearing back or like not even getting any feedback. So that can be really like soul crushing because painting, well, my practice for me is so personal so that when you do get rejected from something, it's like, oh, what am I doing? Like, why? What's the point almost? So I think support in that sense feels important, especially for where I'm at right now, just coming out of uni, trying to find opportunities and keep the momentum going. When you do get opportunities like this, it just feels like a fresh, like, yeah, you got this. Like, keep going. You know?
Go, girl.
You go, girl.
You make them 2.5 metre by 2.5 metre pieces. Like, you
exactly.
make them.
You do that.
Podcast!